Well, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamoni, and I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories, along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. I have an awesome guest with us today from the far land, Australia. Her name is Carla. She's a trauma therapist, university tutor, and mental health advocate. She provides therapeutic services to individuals recovering from trauma and shares her expertise with students in the mental health field. Carla also runs workshops and gives presentations to organizations, helping companies create supportive work environments and raise mental health awareness. Additionally, Carla is an employee assistance program provider offering confidential counseling to employees dealing with personal or work-related challenges and supporting their well-being and productivity. She's also a co-author in the second volume of How to Survive and Thrive with the founder of Reebok, Joe Foster, and One Golden Nugget. So without further ado, I want to introduce Carla onto the podcast. Carla, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Chris, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really had a great time meeting you about 2 to 3 weeks ago, if I remember right, and we had a very powerful conversation.
That's right, we did, didn't we?
We've shared some experiences with narcissistic abuse and the loss of a family member, and we had a very powerful conversation about our grief journeys and our healing processes. So I'm really looking forward to, and I'm going to open up the floor for you, but I'd love for you to share with listeners a little bit about yourself and your story.
Probably will do. Thank you. Um, yeah, so I was born in Lebanon and have been in Australia for 24 years. So that's half of my life, really. I will take you back to 2008 to November 2008. I was expecting my first baby, and my first baby was due on the 23rd of November. But my waters broke on the 9th of November, and the baby was born on the 10th. And she's 16 now. I call her a miracle baby because when we were pregnant, we got told the baby may be stillborn. So we've had some issues, but then she was born beautifully and like she was very healthy. At birth, we've had some complications. She was in the ICU for 9 days. And as your listeners may know, we only really get to appreciate our parents when we become parents ourselves. And I have a sister who lives in Australia, but the rest of my family still resides in Lebanon. So I was very excited that the baby was healthy. I came home after 5 days and the baby was still in the ICU. I used to go back twice a day. And on day 6, my life changed. And it's very unfortunate it didn't change to a nice way. I was um, sleeping. It was at around maybe 3 or 4 p.m. I was having a nap and I was about to go to the hospital to nurse my baby. And I got a phone call saying to me that my mother is in the ICU in Lebanon in um, a very dangerous situation. But I was still half asleep. So as I was going to the hospital, I called my other sister because I woke up, sorry, it was a voice message. Then I called my other sister and I said to her, my other sister called me and told me about my mom's situation, what is happening. She said to me straight out, she passed away. Um, It was sudden. She slept and never woke up. And 16 years on, the pain has definitely changed, but it is still there.
I, I can't imagine how hard that must have been to. I remember you telling me your story when we met, and it
Mm,
all happened around the time that you were giving birth to your daughter, and it all happened within such a short period of time, let alone being all that distance away from Lebanon where your mom passed
mm,
away, and it's almost like
mm.
this welcoming new life into the world, but also not really getting a full chance to say goodbye at the same time.
That's right. And then I am not sure if I really was like would have been able to go back and say my final goodbyes. But then I said, no, I don't want to see my mom as a corpse. I wanted to always remember her as, uh, an enthusiastic person, a smiling person. Uh, Now I do regret it a bit because I do understand how hard viewing is, but how important it is to say your final goodbyes. Because I'm not saying it didn't hit me, but it hits you differently when you get to see the person and to say, that's it, it's finished.
I, I think a lot of people struggle with that in that process. I personally have been on both sides of that spectrum in my own life, and there's times I haven't been able to say goodbye, and I always wonder, what it would have been like if I had that opportunity. I've also had that experience of getting to say goodbye and it being a very rough circumstance. When I lost my grandfather, I watched him pass away in those final moments, and I did have that chance to say goodbye. But it's such a hard memory in that
Very
circumstance
hard.
that I don't try to think about that memory anymore. I celebrate him in the life, as you said. I want to remember my mom in that beautiful place that I remember her, and that's the last image I want. And so I share that compassion and that empathy with you because I look back on my grandfather and I remember all the good times I had with him. I don't really remember and look back on that moment I had when he passed because I don't want to remember him in that capacity. Um, because we have such good
Yeah, look,
memories, right? When we're attached to
it
our,
is very hard. Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I was going to say whatever you decide on, whichever way you decide to go, it is still hard. There's no a better way. When it happened, I said no. I am not sure if I didn't have a baby in the ICU, would I have thought differently? I'm not too sure. And going to Lebanon, the shortest flight would be a 21-hour flight. So it's not a destination that you can do over a day or even over 2 days.
That,
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, at first I said no, but only after a few years, it hit me that I should have gone.
Well, I think what you hit on is really big, though, is that we all make those choices individually for our
Hmm.
journey. And I always say that for some reason things happen the way they're supposed to happen. It's kind of a strange paradox, if you will, in the grief journey that, like you shared, that you have regret over that moment, but it's hard to say, because you had a child and had pregnancy complications, had a baby in the ICU. There was so much going on in that moment to say, who's to say what would have been right and wrong in that moment.
Hmm.
I think you make decisions based off the best you can do at that point with the knowledge and skills that you have at that time. And so I don't ever see it as a right and a wrong situation. I see it as you did the best you could in that moment with what you could do. And ultimately, I think in those moments, we do make the best decision for ourselves.
Of course. And with the situations that I had and I was in back then, still, I'm not too sure if I would have been able to go.
So I'm really curious to learn more about your grief journey from that standpoint. You know, here it is that mom just passed, baby's been in the ICU for a minute. You got your hands full with that. Did you have, how was it trying to raise a child and still find time to grieve and still trying to process that? What was that experience like for you?
Um, it was a very hard one. Uh, to add to it, I was having marital issues as well. So I totally felt alone. I totally felt isolated. And I am the type of person that doesn't make it easier on herself in terms of uh, I do feel the pain by myself. I don't share it. I don't talk about it. And I am a book person, just like the research says that we go through phases. I went through phases. At first, it was very shocking, very traumatic, very tragic, but I was in denial as well. Uh, Now, looking back at it, I believe that my baby saved me because I still had a baby to care for. In the first few weeks, I couldn't leave bed before midday. Like my baby would wake up, I would feed her, put her back down to sleep. I would spend a minute or two with her, or minutes, and then so I couldn't really. Uh, I was functional, but I just needed to cry. I wanted to scream, and I am a very calm, patient person, but I felt from the inside, I had that anger. I had that, no, I don't want to be the good girl. I don't want to be the person who's composed, the person who has it all, but I still didn't do it. Uh, I needed a hug, but I didn't get it. I needed someone to tell me it is tough, it is hard. Um, I must say, one of the hardest things was, and I know that people mean well, but some people said to me, "You've got an angel in heaven now." And that used to make me so furious. And I would say to them, I don't want an angel. I need my mom here. And I am saying this to say to people, I know in death, it's very hard to know what to say. And when you don't know what to say, it is okay to say nothing. It is okay to say, I am here. If you want to talk, if you just want someone to sit with you, and even better, do something for them. Do the washing up. Do anything around the house, cook a meal for them. And it's okay to sit in silence with them. Let them initiate the conversation. Again, I know that people meant well, but in the depths of my grief, I didn't want to hear this because this didn't give me peace. This didn't make me feel better.
I I think that's something really big that you said there that most people don't understand in grief. And I love what you said, by the way, that sometimes being in silence is the best thing you can do for somebody. I interviewed a chaplain who works at a hospital here in the States last week, and she said a lot of people think I'm the religious police when I come into the room, and they start going, "I haven't been to church," I bet, and they get really defensive. And she said, "I'm not here for religion. I'm not here to tell you you need to pray." She said, "What people don't know about my job is most of the time I'm just here silent. I'm just here to be here." And she said, the power of your silence, the power of your presence, just to
Mm,
be there is very comforting to somebody.
Mm.
And she talked about, kind of like you said, about somebody would say, you know, there you have an angel in heaven. It's very dismissive to somebody who's in the depths of grief, experiencing a myriad of emotion, trying to process that loss. And so she said a lot of things like, you know, people will say, you know, you have an angel in heaven. Oh, they're in a better place, or oh, this will get better with time. She said, I don't like people saying those things because you're not giving
Mm.
space for that person to grieve. I got told
Exactly.
that when I lost my son. I got told, well, you make beautiful babies, you'll have another one, or oh, it'll happen in the
Mm.
right time. And it, like you, I got that enraged feeling of I don't want to hear that right now. Like I need my son, just like you said, I need my mom. I
Yep.
think a lot of people don't understand in the depths of grief, almost saying nothing sometimes is actually better than saying something.
Mm. Exactly. And again, I do understand that people mean well, because when you see someone that you love is in so much pain and your hands are tied, really, you can't do anything. You cannot make the deceased return back. So it is a very hard situation for friends around you, but sometimes it's okay just not to say anything. Just tell the person that you are there for them and be guided by them. They will tell you what they need. And if they didn't talk, it means they need silence, but with you being present in that silence.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of talking to many people on the grief journey, and I another guest I had last month, she shared being a listening heart is the best thing you can do. She, you know, I've heard it a
Mm.
lot in the grief community that grievers don't want to be fixed, and I'm sure you can relate to that as well as myself, that we don't want to be fixed, but what we need is space to process. We need space to
Yep.
understand our feelings and our emotions, and try to figure out how to navigate this thing of grief, because our world has changed drastically. You know, I haven't, I personally have not lost a parent yet. I haven't. I've lost a grandparent, and I was very, very close to that one, but I haven't lost a mom. I haven't lost a dad, so I can't really relate to how that might feel or what that process looks like.
Mm.
Um, but I like to give people that space, like you, to share that story and share how that affected you, because I think
Yep.
that space
Exactly.
we give allows people to heal. So,
Yeah. And that is, and healing would look differently for different people, and healing is not having the pain, but healing is getting not only to an acceptance phase, but is getting to live life with the new events, getting to live life with the person not being present in your life. So it will look just a bit differently.
I think you know, one of the things that really helped me on my journey, and I wanted to ask you about this as far as when you lost your mom. I got to a place where I was really depressed going through my losses, but I found at a certain point those feelings got so overwhelmingly heavy that I just said, I literally can't live here. I just can't, because I'm gonna crumble. And I stepped into this world to celebrate those that I lost, and I found ways in my daily life to celebrate them. I still hear my grandfather's voice when I do woodworking projects or I'm fixing my house. I still hear him in the back of my mind saying those things he did growing up when I had time with him. Did you find ways after your mom passed to celebrate her in your life still? And maybe since you had a new daughter to raise, did you pass on certain things that your mom taught you to your daughter?
Uh, yes, and at first I didn't do it consciously, but one, I'm always talking about my mom. My kids never got to meet her, but now when they want, and now my kids are 16 and 14, and when they want to double check that what I am saying is what will go, they say, "Do you swear on your mom's grave?" I'm not too sure if they feel that I love my mom more than I love them, because they don't say swear on us. But I think it's nice that they feel my love for my mom. Um, Look, even though the first few months were really hard, but I had a newborn to care for, and my daughter was a planned baby, and I wanted a baby, and I wanted a girl. So I got what I wanted. So I still enjoyed her. I still laughed. But it's something that you have just mentioned, and that people find it a little bit weird, is that with time, unlike what society says, grief grows and it doesn't uh, go smaller. I mean, up to a certain phase or stage, and then it will get smaller or it will be different. But with time, I felt it more. Because at first, yeah, you'd be upset, you'd be sad, you'd be angry, you'd be in the denial phase. Like if something happened, I'd say, oh, I need to call mom and let her know about this. And then I stop and realize, oh, I can't. So, what has helped me is one, I've taught myself to feel the feelings, that some days, even to date, are going to be tough days. And I just accept it. It's not a tough life, it's just a tough day. My daughter played a big role in my healing process. Uh, she made me a reason to smile, a reason to be playful. Uh, but here, just between brackets, as well, my daughter made it a bit harder as a newborn, because when they found my mom slept at night time, and in the morning they found her. Uh, I'm not too sure if the word is froth, like she had froth coming out of her mouth, because it looks like she died a few hours ago. So when my baby would have like froth or, milk around her mouth, I would imagine mom and I would break down. But at the same time, I think it was healing. It's like me talking about it. I did try to go counseling. I did try two counselors. We weren't able to really connect, which was a shame. Uh, or maybe I wasn't ready. I'm not too sure. Uh, but another thing that I did for my 40th, which was 7 years after the passing of my mom, I had a big party, and I uh, asked people, instead of giving me gifts, to donate money to the Heart Foundation. This was because my mom passed away of a heart attack, and she didn't have any heart issues. So it was really sudden, traumatic, and shocking. So that donation helped me keep my mom's legacy alive.
I think that's a beautiful way to celebrate our loved ones that pass is a lot of times grief gives us it's what I like to call the gift in shitty wrapping paper. It's not the one we want and we don't like it, and it doesn't mean we're okay with it. But we were
Mm.
given this gift. And I think something that is really beautiful, like you said, when your daughter was kind of a healing process for you to remind you of something to smile about every day. That's something a lot of people that go through grief, including myself, struggle with to find every day. Just that little tiny glimmer of sunshine to smile about. And then I also love that you found some meaning to tell people to donate towards a heart cause, because that's something that your mom passed away from. And that gives you, it's interesting how grief leads us on this road to giving back to other people
Mm.
that go through
Exactly.
similar experiences. So.
Yeah. And, maybe if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have thought about it. But yes, grief, as much as it is hard, but it puts us on roads that otherwise we would have never crossed.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things too that I try to share with people about grief, and I'm curious about your path on this one too, is that we're never the same people we were prior to grief happening. We're always we're stepping into this new person, and meeting ourselves. And I tell people that get stuck in grief that you're not really stuck, but what you're having an internal battle with is that you're meeting the new version of yourself and you're pulling away from the old person. And that's a personal
Mm.
transformation process because this new person, we're not really fully sure who that is until we really discover it and accept it and start meeting our new version of ourselves. And that can be a very hard process to let go of certain parts of yourself and step into the new person that you're becoming.
Of course. Um, Louise Hay says in her book, You Can Heal Yourself. She said all diseases come from diseasiness. So she had broken down the word disease into disease. And, you know, grief is one thing that is a fact in life, and no one can escape it. But it gives us this confirmation that we are not in control of everything in our life. And this is, I guess, a feeling that not many humans want to feel. You know, your hands are tied. For me, I woke up from a nap to a message saying, that's it. I couldn't go back in time. I couldn't be in Lebanon. I couldn't say, no, this is a lie. Or I've tried to say, this is a nightmare. Let me wake up from it. But it wasn't. Uh, some things we just need to surrender to. And when I say surrender, I don't mean only accept, but feel the feelings. If you feel angry, be angry. It's not bad. If you feel sad, say it. I am sad. Uh, some people that believe in God may steer away from God because they would say, if God existed, he wouldn't have taken my mom. And that is fine because eventually people will come back or they may not, and that is okay as well. But I guess the bottom line is feel the feelings. Anxiety and depression happen when what we say is not in sync with how we feel on the inside. So it's important for us to be in sync, which is not easy because sometimes you just don't want to feel the pain.
Yeah, you touched on something really important about the grief process, and you're absolutely right, by the way, because I went through that myself, and I think a lot of us do that. Grief isn't a process we can control. And I think something
Yeah.
powerful you said is being able to surrender to it and accept it. And I'm going to preface for the listeners today that that is not something that's going to happen right when hits you. It's probably not going to happen in a week or a month. It can take years to get to that place. And so the big thing that you touched on, Carl, though, is that we do try to control our environment every day. You know, we're always told to be at work at a certain time. We have to pick up our kids from school at a certain time. We got to go to the store at a certain time. We got to be at a wedding at a certain time. We try to put so much control on our life when in reality is that we really don't have control. We really don't. We don't get to
No.
say, you know, when I lost my grandfather, I got told grandpa's not doing well. He's, you know, going to have probably a week left or two to live. He passed in 2 days after I got home. I had no control over that at all. And
Mm.
when I went through that process, I had a hard time. I was love the way you said that surrender. I had a hard time with that. I couldn't wrap my head around it for a long time. But when I did get to that place to say, I accept this loss that happened to me, and I'm sharing this with listeners to pick up on what you said because it's very, very powerful.
Mm.
When you surrender to your grief, when you say that I accept this, it doesn't mean that you let go of emotions. It doesn't mean you got over it. It doesn't mean you're moving on. It doesn't mean any of those things, but it just means that I accept what happened for what it is. And I know that I can't change it. and it did happen for me. But right now, I have an opportunity right now to decide a course of my direction on how I want to heal and what that's going to look like for me. I think that's the big power of what you just said about surrendering.
Yeah, it is. And basically, it is, again, just feel the feelings. Because, like you have just mentioned, at first, you didn't get there straight away. It took you time. So every person will get there, but in their own time. So also, I'm saying, please do not go and tell a person surrender. Just let the person get lost in the feelings. It is okay, but it will come a time when they will be ready to say, well, I have a shitty day, or my week so far has been very, very hard, and that is part of it. That is okay. And some days are going to be good days, genuinely good days and sometimes I didn't feel really bad, but I stopped and questioned myself, like, have I forgotten? Have I fully gotten over my grief? Because just a week ago I was so bad. But with time, I have learned to live whatever the day gives me.
I, I really love that because that's what you just touched on, Carla, is really the power of grief and that it's breaking a normal stereotype, if you will, in the world that somehow grief is linear. And I don't know enough about Australian culture, but I'll say here in the States, it's very much you can take 3 days off from work, but come back to work and be fine. Life goes on. And our mind does not work that way. I don't care what kind of person you are, what background you came from, what home environment you can. I don't care about any of that because at the end of the day, you're a human. You're a human being. And human beings are not wired to just get over it. That just doesn't work. And um, something you hit on about the waves of grief, and I want to give a quick example. When I lost my child, every 23rd of the month, I would get angry, and it wasn't. I just woke up angry. I didn't even know why for the first 6 months. By the way, this just was this automatic nerve thing going on. And my wife caught on to it at a certain point. She said, "You're really angry today, and I see it. I understand it." And she said, "I want you to understand something right now. Your anger is your love for your child. That's what the hell is going on right now. And I want you to tell yourself when you wake up angry on this day, this is what you're actually feeling. I want you to acknowledge that and give yourself permission
Yeah.
to feel that." And so I'm sharing this with listeners because you jog my memory about this. But when you go through grief, give yourself permission to feel. Just like Carla said, give yourself permission to feel your emotions. Some days, like me, you're gonna 23rd of the month, you're gonna have this very angry thing boiling in you, and the anger isn't anger. It's always something else. It's a love or I missed something. It's something deeper within you. But give yourself permission to feel, like Carla said, because that's giving yourself space to process your grief. And nobody can tell you, by the way, how that's going to work, and nobody can really tell you how to navigate that because that's really your own personal
Mhm.
journey. And that should be celebrated, not shamed on or told how to do. But give yourself that permission and that space to really work through your grief and listen to it and understand
Yeah, you must have a very wise wife.
it.
Can I ask you how did you feel, or how was it for you when you realized that it was the 23rd of the month?
When I realized that, I'll tell you, it was a big shift in me. I can tell
Yeah,
you, if for listeners who are curious what this felt like, picture yourself going from angry to love in point two of a second without thinking. That's how it worked. And
yeah.
I can tell you right now, I ended up actually, and since we were talking about this a little earlier today on our podcast, this is where I'll tell people that you can go from a place of very hard grief and I don't understand to what Carla said about surrendering and then into the place where I talked about celebration. That's where that process can really transform. Um, so I hope that helps answer that
So
question.
you didn't. Yeah, it did. But I guess what I was trying to get to, and you did get to it, is that you don't lose the grief, because I'm not too sure about others, but for me, I was worried of not grieving. I was worried of not, feeling sad. I don't know why, as if we have to. But for you, you didn't lose your grief, but your grief was different. It is just you realize that, oh, it's not that something is making me upset or angry, but it's the anniversary, and this makes sense.
I
So
think when
this
we get
has liberated you a bit.
It has. I think that's what I've caught on with you when you told me your story the first time. There were certain parts of things that happened on your grief journey that allowed you to be liberated from it a bit. And I wanted to ask you too on your grief journey because you had a different journey than I did in a lot of ways.
Mm.
When did you find that moment of surrender through your grief process after losing your mom? Was there a pivotal moment or a time where that shift took place for you?
Um, I'm not too sure to be exact, but what I have tried is, I mean, it was a bit my age as well, and that I became a mom like my mom. As a teenager, I did the opposite of whatever my mom used to say to me because I was a typical teenager. Uh, so I went back to doing but what mom used to say more. So I felt connected with her through my actions. Uh, I spoke more about her, not only to my kids but to everyone. uh, I have a special bond with her even to date. It is still a journey, so it's not that that's it. The box is ticked. Uh, my 40th was dedicated to her life and to what she believed in. That is, don't do things for yourself only. Always invite others to be a part of it. Uh, Yeah, so I'm not too sure if I can answer this question, but the pain does subside. I would say it subsided maybe after 5 or 6 years, but for me, until the fifth year, with time, it grew. It didn't get smaller. It grew until that's it. It couldn't grow any bigger. And really, this is what the research say, that uh, it will grow bigger until it will start to subside.
I think that's a powerful lesson that you shared today on the show because a lot of people, have that idea that grief is linear. They have that idea that it's somehow like it's really loud and really
Yeah.
big up front and somehow it just goes away. And I
Yeah.
I I love that you were vulnerable enough to share that today on the podcast, that your grief grew, and you're the first person I've talked to that's had that perspective. And I think that's a really powerful way to acknowledge and understand your grief process, and also at the same time giving it space to understand.
Because at first we go through the denial phase, like we would cry, we would feel down, we would feel angry, but still with time we get to realize it is a fact. Like in my case, my mom is not going to be here. My mom is not going to attend my daughter's first birthday. She's not going to attend any milestones in my life or in my kids' life. And this made me so sad.
I think that's something that's really hard to grasp, and I've certainly I share empathy for you on that. That's the word I was looking for.
Thank you.
Because I I face that same challenge every year on my
Mm,
kid's birthday, and I still don't have really advice or something I could tell somebody about navigating that one because again, it's such a personal journey for everybody individually. And I think when you do come to that realization, it's almost like the grief rears its ugly head again, like giving you a reminder of what I don't have. And I love what you said about your mom, though, that you, as a teenager, you bucked against mom, just like most teenagers do. I did it too, by the way,
yeah.
for everybody listening. I'm guilty of that. But I love that after losing your mom, though, you really reflected on that, and it's almost like your mom lives through you now. I think that's what's so powerful about your story is your mom, she's not here in physical form anymore, but she lives through you, and you get to pass along all those things she taught you, all those things you learned or watched or grew up with, to your own children as a means of celebrating her life and keeping her here in a different form.
Yeah, and it's just sad that it coincided with me becoming a mom, because again, we get to fully understand our parents when we become a parent ourselves. So it looks like that's when I matured. I mean, I did understand her prior, and I used to go back to Lebanon on yearly basis just really to see her, and it was for for her. But yeah, I mean, I was in my early 30s. I had just become a mom just like her. Uh, yeah, it was good. Uh, just on my daughter's birthday, because, you know, every year leading up, and I love birthdays and I make a fuss out of mine. And mine is in December, and my mom passed away a month before my birthday as well. So leading up to my daughter's birthday is a bittersweet moment because the number reminds me that's how long I haven't seen or spoken to mom. But I do get to enjoy my daughter's birthday. I do love it. I do look forward to it. But my daughter's birthday is on the 10th. Mom's anniversary is on the 16th. Um, so after I get to celebrate my daughter's life, I feel a bit sad. And some some years are different to the others. I don't have, last year I was very bad, so this year I'm going to be good. But again, with time, it's becoming less and less down. And in the last few years, I've started without me noticing to shift the anniversary to celebrate my mom's life, to celebrate her teachings and what she has taught me. And, she is still living in me and through me. So now I am changing the language to, instead of being sad, I get to remember my mom and celebrate her life.
I really love that. I want to ask you a question because I can tell you have
Sure.
lots of love for your mom. What's one or two things that was the most impactful advice your mom gave you over the years you knew her?
Funnily enough, something that used to upset me a lot, she used to say, never stop asking for what you want. If you want something, go and pursue it. And, like she used to say this mostly when we started work, like if we wanted a time off work, but we were thinking, oh, maybe they wouldn't, approve the leave. She'd say, well, you can never know unless you ask. So go and ask for it. The worst case scenario, they will say no. Another advice in the Lebanese culture, it is, when my age, I know now things have changed, but my age, people would say to their kids when we go and visit other people's houses and they offer you things, don't take them. Like even if they offered you chocolate, which is hard for a child. My mom used to say to me, if you want, take one. If you don't want, you say no, thank you, but you don't say yes after the no. Once you said no, it is a no. And I do apply it across my life. When I say no, it is a no.
I think there's a lot of power in that lesson, by the way.
I think so too. And plus, she loved music and singing. So I do love karaoke. My kids pay me money to stop singing, but music is life.
Your kids don't partake in the karaoke with you?
My daughter does, but my son says, not again.
Oh, that's too funny, man. I I love those bits of advice from your mom. I have that same thing with my grandfather, advice in my head that I hear from time to time, and I think that's those little things that we remember about our parents, those little phrases that, like you said, growing up, we were just shaking our head, going, I don't like this. I don't want to hear this. This makes me mad. When they're not here, we start looking back and going, yeah, they were right about that. Like
They were right. Yeah.
So-
And the same thing is happening with my kids now. Whatever I say, they say, whatever. So it is life. Life is a cycle, definitely.
Well, Carla, as we wrap up the episode here, I wanted to ask you the big question I ask all my guests at the end of the podcast, that if you were to run into somebody who is just now starting their grief process or feels stuck in their process, what are one or two things that you would share with them that could help them move forward and navigate their grief journey a little easier?
One, I'd say, I am so sorry for your loss. And here it's important to mention that people grieve not only after a person's death. Sometimes it can be a loss of status. Sometimes it can be a loss of a dream. And it is the same. The feeling is the same. It is grieving. I did work with refugees who were doctors in their country. When they came to Australia with no English, they were grieving that status, and that is legitimate. But what I would say is that um, I don't swear, but excuse my French, grief is a bitch. We don't know how it will impact us personally. Uh, you are on your own journey, but please reach out. Surround yourself by people like Chris, like yourself. Listen to these podcasts, even reach out to Chris, reach out to people, if not for therapy, reach out for people who have been through similar experiences, people who speak your language in terms of the grief language. And there's plenty of them out there. Don't do life solo. We are not meant to do it on our own because help is available.
I think that's really beautiful, Carla. I had an isolating grief journey both times I went through loss, and I can stand behind you confidently and say what you just said is probably the biggest thing that you can do when you go through grief is to find somebody that will listen to you without judgment, give you space
Mm.
to feel seen and heard, and also somebody who's gone through what you've gone through. I think that's a big thing that I have actually really enjoyed about doing this podcast is I've never lost a parent. I haven't. And you're somebody who has. And so I know that somebody listening to this episode, this podcast, is going to hear your story who just lost a mom, lost a dad, somebody very important in their life. And they're going to say, wow, I just found somebody who's gone through this and this is how they navigated it. And maybe there's something I can listen to and learn from this so that I can make this trip easier for me. So I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me, and I'm sure a lot to the listeners who are going to hear this episode.
Thank you. And I do take my hat off for you because I know that you are on your own journey of grief, but by doing so and without you knowing, you are supporting many, many people out there that just need to hear that you are going to be angry and that is okay. You are going to feel happy and that is okay. Don't feel guilty. And if I were to end with one thing, I will need to add to end with my motto that is, whatever you have been through, whatever you have gone through, nothing is a life sentence. Don't feel stuck.
That is powerful, Carla. I appreciate you saying that. That's a big reminder that I wish somebody had told me early in my grief journey. I wish somebody had said that to me, because it's really easy in grief to feel stuck and feel trapped in it and feel
Of
very
course,
suffocated that you can't get out. It's very common to feel that. That like you
of course,
said, it's not a life sentence. This is just one chapter of your life, one moment of your life,
yeah,
and you still get the power to create something beautiful out of that experience. So
definitely. Yes.
I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This has meant a lot to me since we met. You have a beautiful, beautiful story, and I commend you for the work that you do in the trauma space. I can't count the number of lives you're going to change just by what you do, but even with this podcast, you're going to help more people than you're even going to know about. And I think that's the beautiful gift that is coming out of your own grief journey today. So just thank you so much for being a part of the Empower Grief Journey podcast.
Oh, Chris, thank you. You are an awesome person and you certainly know how to hold the space for your guests. So, for this, I am very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody listening to this podcast today for joining Carla and I on this episode of the Empower Grief Journey. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody you know who could benefit from Carla's story. The Empower Grief Journey is all about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. I want to invite you to follow us on this podcast at empoweredgriefjourney.com. You're never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.